In our previous video, we discussed the importance of focusing on a few in order to reach the many. In this video, we'll pick up where we left off and discuss how do we need to develop multiplying leaders. Looking at the ministry of Jesus and the apostles, we notice the principle of spending time with a few leaders in order to help them learn how they can develop other leaders. A modern framework to illustrate this principle is the 139. In this video, we're going to dive a little deeper into how we develop our 3 in order that they can go and develop their 3 or our 9. Each of these blue triangles represent a leadership development meeting. This first triangle is whenever you are meeting with your 3, the leaders you're pouring into. And then the second triangle is when your 3 go and pour into their 3. So that the leaders are developing leaders who can develop more leaders. Now, before we talk about the duration and the content schedule for these leadership meetings, let's first make a couple of comments about the frequency and size of these leadership meetings. These leadership meetings should happen twice a month. Once whenever you're meeting with yours, and then they're going and meeting with theirs. So we can say that every leader should be in 2 leadership meetings per month. One where they're eating and one where they're feeding. One where they're being poured into and one where they're pouring out. Now it's important to note that there's no set size or limit you can have. You can meet with 3, you can meet with 5 that you're meeting with. Our only caution is that you would not let the gathering get too big that one is not reproducible. So typically, if it outgrows a living room, which is most intimate settings for leadership development, then it's too big of a group. So things that you might want to consider is if you have too many leaders, maybe you set up 2 different 139s based on geography, size, or location, or interest. It is also important to note that this leadership gathering is not the only time of the month that you'll be pouring into your leaders. You should be a part of their lives, of their homes, knowing their family, going into harvests with them, and investing in their churches, helping them holistically grow as a disciple of Jesus. Now that we've discussed the importance of 2 meeting overlap and discussed how important it is not to let your leadership meetings get too big, that it's not reproducible, let's talk about what do we do with our leaders when we gather them and how long should we meet with them. So each of these blue triangles represent a leadership development meeting that you can do with your 3 and then they could do with their 3. So each of these meetings should last about 3 to 4 hours and happen once a month. So every leader will be in one meeting for 3 to 4 hours once a month, and then they will be leading one meeting for 3 to 4 hours once a month. So what do we do in that time when we're meeting with our leaders? Here we have a 139 pattern. This pattern uses the 3/3 models of look back, look up, and look forward. If you've used the 3/3 model before or the 8 steps, then you're familiar with this idea. But let's go through and talk about how these parts of 139 meeting differ a little bit from how we lead a house church. First, we get together and we spend time in prayer asking God to speak to us. And then we worship God for all the things that He has done in our lives over the last few months, probably the last month. And then we spend time caring for one another, asking what has been encouraging since the last time you met them, what has been discouraging, and we can continue to pray for one another and spend time listening to one another. And then we spend time reviewing what did we learn the last time that we met together as 139. And then we spend time talking about accountability questions that's specific to leaders, to ask them, how is your abiding? Because a lot of leaders don't have an opportunity to talk about that. What's going well? What needs to change? How can we grow? And then how are your churches doing? How are they developing? Are they reaching the lost? How are they growing in maturity? And then how are your 3? How are the leaders that you're investing in? What have you been learning as you met with them? How are they continuing to push forward in finding other leaders that they're developing? And then you come to the lookup portion where you would want to do a new teaching. And this teaching can be based on any problems that your leaders are facing. And if you don't have time to do a new teaching, you can just move forward to the look forward portion. In the look forward portion, you'll practice if you taught something new. You'll practice on how they can implement the new teaching. How can you get your leaders and your networks into this? And then you'll make a plan of personal abiding for how you want to continue to strengthen the maturation and multiplication of churches in their network. And then what they're going to do when they meet their three, when are they going to meet their three, and how are they going to continue to develop them. After that, you'll take time and you'll do an iron on iron. You'll pick one of the three. So if you're meeting with three every month, one person will go, not everybody. But every leader will take turns each month. So if there's three, that means they will do an iron on iron once and every 3 months. And you'll follow the iron on iron process that we outlined in the previous videos. And then finally, you'll spend time praying together, asking God to help all these plans come into fruition, because as Proverbs says, man plans his ways, but the Lord must establish his steps. Another helpful way to visualize the 139 meeting pattern is with symbols. Each of these symbols corresponds to the 10 steps of the 139 meeting. Here at 1, we see prayer. 2, we see worship. 3, we see care. What has been exciting over the past few months? What has been hard praying for one another? 4, we see review. What did we learn? What did we discuss the last time? And 5, we see accountability. What has happened over the last 30 days among your three? What has been abiding? What have they been abiding in? How has their churches been growing and implementing their strategy? And then how was their time with their three? Who did they do an iron on iron? When did they meet? What did they teach? And then the lookup portion. We see 6 is Bible teaching and teaching those 6 key steps of Bible study. So what did we teach them this time? And 7 is practice and practice again. 8 is planning. What are we going to do next in the next 30 days? How are we going to teach our leaders in churches? And then what is their plan? When are they going to meet their threes? What are they going to teach or facilitate them with? And who's going to do iron on iron? And 9 is taking time with the 139. Picking one person that will do the IOI this month. And then 10 is praying. So as you think about this 139 meeting pattern, I want you to think, who do you need to meet and start implementing this pattern so that they can develop leaders who continue to develop more leaders until there's no place left without the gospel.